Silvy, good to see you. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it as always. Hope is a beautiful thing, right? When was the last time you felt this much hope surrounding the Bears heading into a season?
Well, look, hope has been there. It's the delivering on the hope that has
Yeah.
not been there, Judson. So, I think that this is a higher range of hope than we've had in the past because I just feel like that the quarterback situation is finally figured out. I really believe in Caleb Williams. I've been there the last several weeks through the rookie OTAs, through regular OTAs, through mini camp. We only get, the media only gets once a week viewing.
Right.
But I was a big proponent of a change. I like Justin Fields. I think there were great attributes about him, but I just didn't think, as far as a passer, as far as a pocket passer, that he was the guy. I think it's going to be times that it's going to be bumpy with Caleb, like all rookie quarterbacks, but I just think that already they've got something that they never had with Justin Fields, with Caleb Williams. So I think they're ready to deliver on the hope. So,
Right.
in 2018, it was a great year. They came out of nowhere. And in 2019, the hope in Bears 100 was overflowing. We thought that was just going to be the start of like this window opening and that they were going to be a contender year in and year out. And then it just massively failed. So what I call it is the Bears have always had these pop-up stores. These like, like how like when you go to the mall or you have a restaurant pop-up where,
Yep.
hey, we're here for 2 weeks and then we're going away. Like I'm hoping now that the Bears are opening up this real brick and mortar thing where it's here year in and year out and we know that they have a chance to do something for years.
I'm with you on Caleb Williams. I am curious about just how much he can live up to the hype. Not all of it's his fault. He did want to say he wanted to win 8 rings, but part of it is just the popularity, the coverage of the NFL. What would constitute a good season for Caleb Williams to show us that he is in line to become the guy that we all think he can be?
Right here, the eyes. I think we could put a number. We could say he's going to break the Bears record with Eric Kramer's record,
Right.
or he could become the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000, or he could throw for 30 touchdowns. But I just think we'll know it when we see it.
Yep.
We'll know it. Like we're gonna watch him, and we're just gonna say, yeah, he's it. And I don't think that there's a number of touchdowns or there's a number of yards. I think we're all going to say, we finally got the guy. We finally got a guy that we know can really be a quarterback in today's football that the Bears can go to battle with every year and is going to be a guy who could play with the Packers and can play with the Vikings and can play with the Lions and can battle for the division. I'm a firm believer of that, and it's something that the Bears have really never had. I thought Cutler was going to be that guy. Cutler was built in a lab. Cutler was perfect. He was the perfect size. He had the perfect arm. He was super, super smart. He was sneaky, athletic, really good athlete, but it just never truly came together for a variety of reasons. I mean, the podcast would go forever if we would just go on Cutler. And I still believe that if we sat in a bar, I always say, if we sat in a bar today and we had 100 people in the bar, 50 people on bar stools would say he was a great quarterback and 50 people said he sucked. Like it's still a very polarizing thing. But I just think that when Caleb Williams plays, there's not going to be a number that we put on it. We're just going to say, that he's the guy.
Yeah, and The eye test, if it's there, he should also set records because it's hard to believe. I mean, 14 quarterbacks last year would have had the all-time single-season passing record for the Bears. The league is just slanted towards offense, and I think Caleb Williams can certainly do that. Ryan Poles, to me, has been a beautiful distraction for two people in particular because his wizardry with the draft, not only to get Caleb Williams, but to have pick number 1 and number 9, I think has helped mask some of the things happening with Kevin Warren. We'll talk about him in a minute, but also Matt Eberflus, right, where we talk about his beard and his tan and his new haircut, more so than a lot of inabilities that he had, including just the woeful way that they showed up against the Packers week 1 last year. Where is your confidence level in Matt Eberflus?
Scale of 1 to 10, he's like a 3 right now. And
a 3?
Yeah. He's and I think this goes in with Poles. It's one of my big question marks about Poles because, like what you said, Ryan Poles has done an unbelievable job of I loved the process of what he did to decide with Caleb Williams and all the different interviews that he did, the route that he took to decide. It's one thing to get it right or wrong, but the process has to be the correct process. And I liked the route that he took. I'm still wondering why he believes so much in Matt Eberflus. And it's something that you mentioned. I wrote about this in my column for Shaw Media last week. I walked into training camp last year and I covered the Bears. My first Bears training camp was 1995. And this isn't to say that I'm expecting them to practice like it's 1995, but I've just seen so many camps gone by from 95 to current day Bears. And for somebody who fancies themselves as this hits principle guy, where the H stands for hustle, the I stands for intensity, something was missing last year. There was no hustle. There was no intensity. And sure enough, it translated on the field against the Packers. Everybody was ready to play except for the Bears. The fans were ready. We were ready. We thought that they were going to finally take over this rivalry with Aaron Rodgers gone, a young team, a new quarterback. And the Bears were shell-shocked. And they started 0-4, and a 10-game losing streak grew to 14 games. And it was, in my mind, it was unacceptable. And the coaching staff wasn't ready because two members of the staff were dismissed because of HR violations. And these were guys who were picked by Eberflus. So, and even when they bounced back to get 7 wins, let's face it, he's the defensive coordinator. A lot of the reasons why they blew those games against Detroit, against Cleveland, it was because of bad fourth quarter defense. And that's on him. So I still need to see a lot from Matt Eberflus. He's one of the big things. I have my question marks are the offensive line, the defensive line, and Matt Eberflus. So and that all ties in then to Ryan Poles. While he's done a wonderful job, I love the word that you used. What did you use? Wizardry? I've never used.
Yeah, wizardry. Wizardry. I think I mispronounced wizardry by saying wizardry. I dropped the R.
Like you had me. You had me on it. Like,
good.
What word is that? But it's something that I still need to be convinced on with Ryan Poles. It's one of the last things.
Yeah, my biggest question mark is when will Nate Davis show any interest in being a Chicago Bear, because they certainly need him. Yes. 10 years from now, you and I are sitting at a Bears we're in the press box at a Bears game. Where are we? What's the zip code? Where is said stadium that we're enjoying this Bears game?
I think it's 606 something. So like I don't know what Soldier Field is. What is it? 6060. Like 606 is Chicago.
Right.
600, like, which would be the suburbs. So I think that it's going to be Chicago just because I think Kevin Warren is obsessed with wanting to be in Chicago. I don't think that this is I keep hearing, oh, this is still just a power play to get what they want from Arlington Heights. Kevin Warren wants to be in Chicago. And even though right now it's not working.
Do you get it?
What's
like,
that?
Do you get it? I have a difficult time making sense of it. And one of the things I'm so tired of hearing is about how Kevin Warren loves living in the city. Who cares where he likes living?
Right.
He works for the Bears. He's supposed to make the best decision for the Bears.
Right.
With the challenges, I mean, in a perfect world, if you got $6 billion, I can make sense of it. But trying to make sense of it with all things considered, I'm having a tough time figuring it out.
Well, look, I thought the perfect play was finally what they were doing a year ago was they purchased the land. And I've said this on the air, the way they've sort of handled the stadium issue reminds me of the process. And I mentioned process earlier about Ryan Poles with the quarterback situation. They finally, I believe, got the process right with how they've done the quarterback situation. They've been sloppy with the way they've brought up the quarterbacks before, where they've changed coaches and they've expected a new coach to develop an old general manager's quarterback, and it's never synced up, and it's been very sloppy. So the way they've done this stadium situation reminds me of those sloppy process of the way the quarterbacks have gone. Like, they buy the land in Arlington Heights. They demolish Arlington Racecourse. And then Ted Phillips leaves. The new president comes in. The new president sees the plans and says, no, this isn't working for me. The old mayor leaves Chicago. The new mayor comes into Chicago. The new president from the Bears comes in, meets with the new mayor of Chicago. They're like, let's revisit downtown Chicago. Now they've got all this land. They've already bought it for $200 million. They've already spent millions on demolishing Arlington Racecourse. They're already negotiating the tax situation. Now you're going back to Chicago, and now all of a sudden you're getting a deal there, and now you're trying to negotiate with Friends of the Park. You're trying to negotiate with the state of Illinois and trying to get all the money and the tax benefits of the Illinois Sports Authority. So,
right.
And now you've run into the walls with the state, and you weren't even on their docket in the spring legislature, and you're hoping now in the fall, and you're trying, and time's ticking, because every year that goes by, it's another $150 million to $200 million in escalated in costs on building the stadium. So I want them to do this right, and I don't want them to take shortcuts, but I have no clue. It doesn't make, so getting back to your question, I don't understand. I don't really know why. I believe if you really want to do it right, you want as many tailgate spots as possible. You want it as convenient as possible for all your fans to get in and out of the stadium. You still have the lake to the east. You still have the railroad tracks to the west. You still only could go north and south out of there, no matter how good of a stadium you build. So it's not convenient for pedestrians. It's not convenient for people driving cars. So I don't love it. I don't. I think it's great for Chamber of Commerce. I think it's great for a blimp shot, and it may be great sitting inside of there, but I don't believe it's the best possible stadium that they could build. But Kevin Warren wants it downtown, and until he doesn't want it downtown, I'm going to put my money on they're going to build downtown.
In my time in San Diego, I've talked plenty about stadium, and I remember at the very end there, with the Chargers in San Diego, it was a lot like a frat house trying to come up with money for an Airbnb in Las Vegas. It was like, all right, well, Bobby will put in 150, Randy says he'll put in 200, Joe's got 650 on it. And because, and I think the Chargers were going to put in like $200 million. This is where we were at. So the thing to me, if they actually have $2 billion to spend, whether it's financing and otherwise, then that money will play. like you're off to a really good start for
Yeah.
your own project. So the amount of money they're willing to come up with while not own it on their own land, to me, is still very confusing. I think that there's something that behind the scenes that we just may not know. Ryan Sandberg gets a statue on Sunday. Well deserved. Who's the Cubs' next statue?
I think the next statue is a collaborative statue of the 16 Cubs, because we were discussing this. I don't think anyone on that team really is getting their own statue on their own, because who is the guy? I don't think it's Rizzo. Bryant was the MVP. He wasn't here long enough. Kyle
Right.
Hendricks was the guy with longevity, but he wasn't the biggest star. Jake Arrieta, probably in that short period of time, carried them the furthest, but he was a very short time. John Lester's my favorite Cub because I believe he was the biggest game player. But again, like how long was it? So I believe Javi, all these guys. So I believe it's going to be a collaborative statue.
Sure.
The White Sox have one right behind the entrance there. So I think it's going to be something like that. I do believe a few of those Cubs do deserve to get their number retired. And I would retire John Lester's number. A lot of people don't believe that, but I just think, look at his postseason stats. He changed what John Lester did when he said yes to the Cubs.
Right.
That literally opened up the window. And what he was able to deliver, there's nobody I'd want on the mound more than John Lester in any big game in Cubs history.
Silvy, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, especially with the jerseys behind you, just a big picture question to finish things off here. A cancer survivor, pre-cancer diagnosis, post-cancer diagnosis. How is your life different? Do you see through a different lens, I'm assuming?
Sure. Yeah. Especially when you stop and think. I mean, you always worried about it before you were diagnosed. I mean, there's so much awareness to cancer, and we've always tried to raise money for the V Foundation. You've heard so many stories before on how it affects you, and you've heard so many stories that one day it's going to affect somebody, a friend or a relative, and then it's the man in the mirror, as they say. I had the lump here, the lump in the groin. 4 years ago now, I was going through the treatments. It's 4 years in remission. And, I'd be lying if I said that I don't slow down enough currently to sort of still recognize. And I think in the first year or two, there's more gratitude. And as cancer survivors, what they always say is the gratitude and recognizing and smelling the roses, being present. I think when you keep going in your life, you sometimes lose sight. I'm still trying to be mindful, and I'm more mindful today than I was 4 years ago. But I sometimes have to catch myself and remind myself a lot about that, because you get with a 10 and an 8-year-old and with the stress of a job and you're, I'm 52 and still I feel like in the prime of my life, you get caught in the hustle and bustle, or you're sitting on the Kennedy and you're pissed off that it's taking over an hour and 10 minutes to get to work. So I'd be lying if I said that. We all get lost in our lives, and it's a good reminder to say, 4 years ago, I was sitting in that chair at Lake Forest Hospital getting chemotherapy, wondering where the journey was going to take me. So I think it's always a good reminder to kind of stop and take time and to breathe and to say, I'm thankful I'm where I am today.
Well, Silvy, speaking of taking time, I don't know you well, but I know you well enough to know that you always make time for people. So thanks. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, you deserve it for sure.
Thanks.
I appreciate you.